All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rome, and welcome to the first full panel here at Meridian. My name is Adam Meinhardt. I'm the head of government relations at the Stellar Development Foundation. And I am really excited today to be joined by three of our panelists. Dr. Anino Amua, the founder of 100 Women at Davos. Katarina Furtak, right here next to me, head of strategic initiatives at Unstoppable Domains, and our own Karen Chang, who's vice president of engineering at SDF. It's not lost on me that I am a white male moderating a panel on crypto diversity, and that is why I'm so glad that we have our panelists here today to share their experiences and advice on how to address these very problems. So thank you all for being here today. With that in mind, I wanted to share a few statistics that I think really illuminate the challenges facing the crypto industry when it comes to diversity. The first is that according to LinkedIn's own data, between 2018 and 2021, 70% of new crypto hires were women, and 70% were men, and 30% were women. And last year, women's share actually declined to 25%. It's a marked difference between banking and traditional finance, where the net new share of new hires for women is about 45% a year. So crypto, I think, has some work to do when it comes to increasing diversity. And in addition, when it comes to founders, the problem is even more pronounced. According to a study by the firm CryptoHead, who analyzed the genders of founders in the crypto industry, it found that of the 121 listed founders of crypto firms, only 5 were women. So I think there's a lot of work to do in terms of diversifying the workforce in crypto. So with that, let me turn to our panelists to have them briefly introduce themselves. I'll start with Anino, there on the end. Welcome, Anino.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Excuse me. Hi, everybody. My name is Anino Amua. I'm the founder of 100 Women at Davos, which is a community of impact-focused women leaders, which was founded in Davos quite a few years ago, and I'm sure you can imagine why, the lack of leadership. And my work is about increasing diversity in leadership, because it's something that is shown to be good for businesses, good for economies, and also there's also the issue of social justice. So delighted to be here. And also I sit on quite a few international and global boards.
Karen?
Hi there. My name's Karen Chang. I'm the VP of Product and Engineering at Stellar. When I'm on these panels, I always like to talk a little bit about my identity, just because it can frame the conversation in my perspective. So I am an immigrant to the United States. I'm obviously Asian American. I'm female. I'm LGBTQ identified. English was not my first language. And I think in terms of work experience, I graduated and went directly into software engineering. So I've spent over the last 25 years in various roles, either as a software engineer, engineering manager, engineering leader. But my experience is very much, in the United States. I'm super excited to hear the different perspectives internationally. And why is diversity in crypto important? I think, as Dr. Anino said, there's the whole issue of like social justice, what's good for business. When it comes to crypto, actually there's this idea of the monoculture, and it's something we want to avoid, right? Because intrinsic in every consensus protocol is the idea that a single entity having control over compute resources, tokens, or validator nodes is a bad thing, because they get to define what truth looks like on the ledger. So I wanted to tie back this conversation to this idea that monocultures are bad, and that's why we need to have more diversity in crypto.
Thanks, Karen.
Sure.
Katerina?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Katerina. I'm head of strategic initiatives at Unstoppable Domains. Unstoppable Domains is a platform for digital identity in Web3, and the product is NFT domains like Katerina.crypto that you can use to log into different decentralized applications, to use it as your payment address to send crypto easily, or as a domain for a decentralized website, like your name in Web3. And my role is to lead strategic initiatives for business development. And one of those initiatives is called Unstoppable Women of Web3. This is an educational group that we have created for the industry with the goal to onboard more women into Web3.
Thank you. Thank you all. Well, so excited to have you all here. Why don't we jump right into the questions? I'll start off to you, Karen. We've heard a lot about the diversity challenges, as I think we've laid out, and about how the industry is dominated by white men and even potentially has a crypto bro problem. Karen, to you, what is your perspective on that?
Right. So I think we can just assume there is a crypto bro problem in the industry. Now, the question of why that exists is kind of interesting. Well, first, let's define what a crypto bro is. For those in the audience who aren't familiar, I think it's very much an industry term in North America. So I think that's speaking to the fact that the demographic profile of most people in crypto are male, white, and they tend to be young. So how do people get engaged in crypto? I think that they're technology hobbyists, right? So crypto is obviously about code and software engineering. And so if we tie that back, I heard a statistic that actually there's a 28% kind of engagement in cryptocurrencies by women, right? So 28% of people who hold crypto are women. And what's interesting about that is it ties back to the statistic around women graduating from computer science programs in the United States. Strangely, we've actually seen a decline in gender diversity in computer science programs. So in 1985, which is like the height of the Reagan years, very conservative time, it was 35% of women, and we're currently at 22%. So what's really interesting about those two statistics for me is like they're kind of like matching, right? So I think, you know, crypto exists within this larger question of like how do women feel about their ability to learn, you know, science, technology, engineering disciplines. And what we're seeing is that we're actually kind of going backwards on that. So really, it's like we're part of like this broader context, I think is, you know, the moral of that story. I think the other story I really like to tell is I don't feel like technology is neutral to social concerns. Mm-hmm. So on Twitter, there was this kind of tweet going around where Google has something called Vision AI. It's a machine learning algorithm that's built on top of a neural network. And the neural network is basically trained from human information, human data sets. And this neural network tries to identify like a picture and label it automatically. So it has spatial IQ. And so there's a picture of a black man with a temperature gun, and it's labeled as a firearm. And next to it is a picture of an Asian man with that same temperature gun, and it's labeled as an electronic device. Mm. Right, so I think, again, right, it's kind of like those kind of unconscious biases that already exist in our society get inherited by code, I think is a moral of that story.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Karen. I think you framed the problem really well. Let me turn to Katerina and ask you, what can the industry do to address these problems?
Yeah, I also want to share an example from my personal experience. I have been hiring developers across Europe for 2+ years at Unsupple Domains. And from 100 interviews, I would have only one with a woman. Even though my colleagues were asking me, please make our team more diverse, bring some female colleagues to us. And I was really trying. And when I was asking my friends of mine who are female coders why they didn't apply, mostly I would hear the answer that they didn't feel confident to change areas. They didn't feel confident they could master Web3. It's very common for women to step back when they face some new challenge, and they would think, I'm not good enough, or I'm risking losing, or this will harm my family. Like a lot of reasons to step back. We think that, that's one of the reasons why we created Unsupple Women of Web3. We think we need to educate female more, like show them other females who made their journey into Web3. Because if you see it, you can be it. So education really matters, and also the way we are creating conversations also matters. I even noticed today that women were not asking questions, and this is so common in tech industry, and especially in Web3. Like Lauren said, that only 5% of crypto entrepreneurs are women. So at Unsupple Women of Web3, we are trying to challenge these problems. And first of all, we are creating educational streams that these materials are created by female leaders from well-known Web3 and Web2 companies like Ripple, OpenSea, Blockchain.com, Gemini, and women can see that the stories of other female who changed their career path to Web3, how they built their careers, how they created their projects. They get really excited and motivated, and we have seen how they are willing to ask questions, and they feel confident and are not afraid. So when we were launching in March, we ran 24 hours Twitter marathon, all with female stories, and then we did a lot of live events. And you think, like, if others did it, you can also do. Another thing is that, as I mentioned, we need to showcase more female, like send more female to speak on stage, to Web3 conferences. Currently, the best like Web3 conferences would have maximum 20% of female speakers. That's like the top. And we have seen a lot of companies coming to us and asking, can you please recommend us female speakers? And so we decided to create a speakers bureau only to showcase female in Web3 and what kind of topics they can speak, so that event organizers could go to that list and invite female speakers to their conferences. And another interesting thing that we created is a list of top 100 women in Web3 and also top 25 girls in Web3. That's actually one of the educational tracks that we have, Web3 for young girls. And it's amazing how many young girls are there, like age 13, who already have their projects.
That's awesome.
So there are women in Web3. We just need to showcase them more.
That's awesome. Thank you, Katerina. And I wanted to ask the same question to you. What things can the industry do here to increase diversity?
Okay, the first thing is putting it into context, and the whole discussion about diversity, equity, and inclusion is correcting a problem that has arisen from many years. Now, what we want to try to do is to stop replicating that problem and to actually start afresh with emerging technologies, not just because technology is a sector, but because, of course, it's driving and shaping our lives. So the issue is crypto is a new industry. It's a young industry, relatively, and is to build it in right from the very beginning. And that is to say that you have to have intentionality. Here, Karen has talked about the beginning, the issues of not having sufficient women who are already in programs, in computer science programs. We talked about role modeling. Katrina's talked about that. So there has to be intentionality. And one thing is that the issue of role modeling is very important. I mean, as SDF here, we have Danelle, who should be your chief hiring officer in the sense that once you see her, you can be like that. So that allows women, to be interested in the industry. Now, the other thing is that the organizations themselves have to be intentional, but intentional in two ways. Not just about recruiting and finding out where women are. Where are women? Women tend to be where other women are, so you need to find those networks of women. And yes, even though there mightn't be enough women with a technical background, there are women with other skills, and marketing, communications, and legal skills, and lots of other skills. But importantly is the issue of inclusion. Women tend to be very strong in communities if they feel there's a feeling that that organization is not inclusive, right? You will not find other women being attracted into that industry. So the culture has to be culture that is inclusive, which means not just diversity in terms of the numbers, but the behaviors which makes other women feel included, right? Everything from the workspace, the language, being included in decision making is very important, right? And when you also leverage women's communities, one woman tells another woman, tells another one, right, and you leverage those communities, right, you find that that can allow you to become more diverse. Very often there might be a feeling, if there aren't enough women, then surely that's a problem. The other thing is that we know is that not every woman who has the skills and who has the ability, who has the background, is fully employed. If the problem was with supply, every woman who has those skills would be overemployed, would have the highest salaries, right? So that can't possibly be the issue. So intentionality is absolutely very important. Culture of the organization, inclusion is very important.
Thank you, Anino. We've seen a lot of companies really institutionalize diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, particularly in the U.S. after the death of George Floyd. I want to ask you, Katerina, are we seeing these sorts of policies get adopted by companies in the crypto space?
Yeah, I think it's in order to have this inclusivity, inclusion, and diversity, it's if we talk about women, first step is for women to take. So they need to lean in, they need to stop being afraid, they need to negotiate more confident. Second is for the industry to show that the doors are open. And the way we show it, we need to showcase more female, right, in your marketing materials, on your website, showing female leaders that you have, sending them to conferences. Of course, we have a lot of policies where you will mention that you can't marginalize any group, like you need to treat everyone equally. But I think what my personal idea, what each company could do in order to bring that into practice, just go through the list of your employees, find people from these marginalized groups, and that's not only women, people maybe of different age, like too young or older than 50 or 60, and pick the ones that you think are really talented, but maybe they are shy, and create a career path for them, like as a manager, create a career path for them for the next 6 months, with definite goals and with definite outcome that they will give, like they will reach a higher salary or higher position. And I'm quite sure with this practice, each company can bring these policies into life, not just having it as a policy that is beautifully worded, but have it in your life.
Thank you. Karen, let me ask you, you work for SDF, Layer 1. Are you seeing these sorts of policies become adopted in the industry with regard to DEI, hiring, recruiting, goals for diversity on board, and executive management? What's your view on that?
Well, I think the DI problem is really a top of the funnel problem, as I was alluding to, right? Because the way we think about recruiting is like there's the superset of who's available, and then within that context, we go through our different screens, both technically and culturally, to arrive at the person who's the best fit for SDF. And so if the top of the funnel is a small set, then the bottom of the funnel is going to be even smaller. And that's my experience. So I think part of it is actually, talking about what Katerina was alluding to, is how do we increase the top of the funnel? That's the thought that's been on my mind in the time I've been in the industry. And I started in a time which was like way back when, some of you may not have been born, Web 1.0. Not even Web 2.0, right? Web 1.0. And that was around the time when basically the modern internet was created. There wasn't like computer science programs that were targeted to learning about internet technologies because kind of like crypto, it was a very novel and new space of innovation, right? So people weren't graduating with a internet computer science degree. And so I worked at this place called Netscape. They invented the modern browser, and they created a user experience on top of all these internet protocols and made it really accessible for everybody. And I remember at that time that, the majority of people who worked there were really diverse, actually, way more diverse than now. So for some reason, there's like a connection point between people who are musical and people who can be really good at programming. So I just chalk it up to spatial IQ. And that all changed, actually, in the 2000s with, like, Web 2.0 and really the rise of Google. So I always blame things on Google. As you can tell, this is my second Google story because they're such a monolith in Silicon Valley and they set the pace for everybody else. But Google started this interview process where they wanted to bring in rigor, right, to the technology screen. And what that meant was these really, I felt like synthetic exercises where there's a whiteboard and then you have to go through and actually program on a whiteboard. In addition to that, they would have brain teasers like, oh, here's a jar with like jelly beans. Ask me any question and tell me how many jelly beans are in this jar. And somehow that was supposed to help them understand your problem-solving skills. So I had to do this when I came back to Silicon Valley from New York. I was in traditional finance for a while. And I just remember the experience of interviewing female engineers, right? And I think there's this kind of unconscious message that women have in our society that, yeah, they're just not as technical as men. And, just seeing someone kind of crater because of their own lack of confidence, is kind of it's kind of a heartbreaking experience. And what's funny is some of those women that I interviewed, I kept in touch with, and she didn't pass our technical interview. I was working at a startup, but she ended up working at Google, right? So I think that's an interesting story about, like, yeah, how valid are these ways that we're actually arriving at this idea of competency in the industry. Very long-winded, sorry. I think in general we need to like have a broader definition of who's technical, right? And what it means to actually be a good engineer. It's not just being good at kind of these synthetic algorithms. It's also a multidisciplinary type of problem solving where I think people have to be creative as well and interested in all the different aspects, like the business aspects. Why are you doing something, right? Not just the optimal kind of algorithm to solve that business problem, because you may be actually solving the wrong problem to start with. I'm sorry. No. Tell me if I have time, because I do want to say what SDF is doing.
Well, let me turn. Let me get Anina's perspective on this. Are you seeing companies in the crypto space kind of institutionalize DEI in the same way that other companies are outside of crypto?
It's starting. What has happened is that DE&I has been seen as a big company problem, and a lot of attention has been focused there and ignoring, the smaller companies and startups. But that is happening, and one reason why it's happening because of lack of talent, and they're getting through the message. The message is getting through that there's this pool of talent, women, right, that is not being tapped. So it is getting through, and I think also with the younger generation as well, that is more interested in terms of all the issues of ESG, diversity, equity, and inclusion as well, are naturally looking at more diversity. I give a small example with a firm, an organization I'm working with, a tech firm, and what they have done was that the founders were, two founders, then another two, all men, right? But they were very conscious of it, and what they then did was they hired the next level, made sure it was diverse, and also what they're doing was giving scholarships tech scholarships to women, right, based on income. So that is dealing also with that new generation. So there are many ways to skin a cat, right? And there are many things that need to be done. I think on this panel, what we hear is that you have to look at it from the beginning, the entry-level education. You have to look at it, the selection process. You have to look at within organizations, right, and the culture and how you're retaining women and promoting women. And you have to look at the top and leadership. But just a last point, because we haven't covered that, is that on capital, venture capital. We know that there's only 2% going out to women. It's a big problem. And I see it every day with women, because we have women with good ideas who are doing amazing things. They can't get the funding, and so they're off the screen. Yet the data is showing that female-funded businesses, female-run businesses actually exit faster and at higher valuations. That might be a shock for many people, but that's what the data shows. So funding is absolutely critically important in this space.
Thank you for that. I'd like to just do a rapid question to you all, just to wrap up, given that we just got a few minutes left. If there's one thing you would want to leave the audience with today about diversity and crypto, what would that be? To you first, Katerina.
Education. Like, get educated yourself, be confident, and negotiate confidently. Never think of yourself like you're from some group that is not good enough. Like, everyone is equal.
Great, thank you. Karen?
I think it's harkening back to what Dr. Anina said, which is intentionality. It is important to have that, right, as we look to broaden the participation. So just a plug for SCF. So when it comes to recruiting, we're very intentional about how we recruit, and we've gotten really good results. It's actually the first place where diversity, equity, inclusion is an OKR almost every quarter. It's a top-level strategic priority, and that trickles down. So what it means for us is, when we have an engineering role, we make sure if there isn't inbound, which is diverse enough, then we make sure to reach outbound. And the results kind of prove themselves. Like we've seen in Q1 of last year, we had 9 out of 13 of our hires were kind of diverse candidates, which is an incredible ratio.
Thank you, Karen.
Karen, do you have any stats on how many women you have in your company?
I think it's hard to collect those metrics just because I think there are some privacy or regulatory issues around that. So we can send out surveys, but it doesn't guarantee absolute participation from everyone. So I don't have those numbers off the top of my head, other than that recruiting number I gave you, which is we managed to hire 70% of our candidates in Q1 being diverse and inclusive candidates.
That's amazing.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Nino, to you, final remarks on kind of directives on a main takeaway for crypto and diversity for the audience.
Yes, I think so. At a higher level, I'll say we're here when talking about the urgency of doing. And I think if we go away with that, we're sitting in this room in another 10 or 20 or 30 years. We are the ones that are creating this thing that is coming, and we have a responsibility. So I think we have a room full of very bright, clever, creators, innovators, managers, leaders, right, financiers. And if we come away with that consciousness that we are the ones creating this thing, and we don't want to be where we are today, solving the problems of the industrial age, right? And therefore, it's our responsibility. It's a collective responsibility. And I think that if we come away with that, we can find solutions to the problem.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Consciousness, intentionality, and education.
Yeah.
I think those are really good takeaways for the panel. I think we're just about at time, so I really want to thank you all for helping us better understand the challenges the crypto industry is facing today and some of the things that we can think about to address them. So thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Thank you.
Thank you.